OnEducation is sponsored by Participate, a community learning platform where the world learns together. Later in the episode, we'll hear about one of Participate's partners, The Sandbox, and how you can get involved in its free community learning opportunities and live streams.
My point is that, we've shared a lot of really good memories. Welcome to OnEducation, part of the On Podcast Media Network. My name is Mike Washington.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will discuss whether virtual conferences can have the same benefits as physical ones, whether most teachers earn their master's degree, and our guest this week is... we're not telling yet. Stay tuned for a big announcement.
Cliffhanger.
We've never done that before.
There's been at least a few people that saw our little tease on Twitter and can't handle the pressure of not knowing, and you thought you were just about to find out, and nope. Not yet. Not yet. We're making you listen to the whole damn podcast before you find out. Sorry about your luck.
Get us those statistics, longer listens in.
Right. We need to crank up our numbers on the amount of time people listen to the podcast. So we're just gonna, we're gonna milk this one for a few hours.
For sure.
Actually, not at all. So that's hilarious. I got vaccinated.
Nice.
My second
number 2
dose. Yeah, I'm excited.
How do you feel?
I actually so I got it on Friday. Today's Tuesday. I think I got it on Friday. Got it on Friday and felt fine Friday night, most of the day Saturday, or all day Saturday.
Okay.
And then somehow, I knew I was feeling off, but it wasn't like super bad. Sunday afternoon, I was doing some side hustle work.
Okay.
For Logix Academy, and almost immediately after I finished doing what I was doing, around 1:00 on Sunday afternoon, it hit me like a truck. And I felt so bad. I had to go lie down for like 3.5 hours. I felt terrible on Sunday. It sucked. And my arm was sore. I can still feel it a little, but my arm was sore for a couple days.
Yeah.
But I do have one of the rare side effects.
What is it?
Which is super weird. My tongue is like super numb.
Really?
Like
That's crazy.
Yeah, I had to look it up. It's like a pins and needles type feeling on my tongue.
Wow. Dang.
So I can taste. I haven't lost my sense of taste.
But it's just a weird feeling on it.
Yeah.
Kind of like after going to the
weird.
dentist and when they give you anesthesia or whatever they give you to be able to.
Kind of like that.
Yeah.
It kind of like how that feels as it's starting to wear off.
Yes. That's a
where
weird feeling.
Where you can feel it but not feel it, but like it's itchy, right? Like how your face is itchy after the freezing is starting to go away. Yeah, I have like a weird pins and needles sensation in my tongue.
How long is that supposed to last?
Super strange.
Yeah, how long is that supposed to last?
I don't know. We're gonna find out. So but I can't get I can't die. So from coronavirus at least. Right.
Yes.
So at least there's that.
It's a good exchange. Exactly.
Yeah. It's a bit of a trade-off. I'm fine with it. You were saying whether virtual conferences can have the same benefit as physical ones. So as a lot of people know, ISTE is going on, right now.
Yes.
Started on Saturday. Normally we would be there and working our asses off and going around and whatever. Oh, by the way, next year I heard it's in New Orleans.
Really?
And I've never been to New Orleans.
Yeah, that's a cool place.
Yes. I'm fairly excited about that, to be honest.
It's a warm place, especially this time of year.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm fine with that too. I hate winter. I'm the Canadian that hates winter. Anyways, it's, it's funny. It feels better than last year, as a virtual event.
Okay.
Certainly more organized. Certainly better. Like the systems are better. Now that being said, I've spent most of my time in. There's something weird. I'm not sure how Steve Isaacs, and that's the name drop for the episode, Steve, that you were looking for. I'm not sure how Steve and Epic Games managed this, but they ended up using their own system and then patching it into the ISTE system or something like that, which I think is fascinating. But so I did 2 sessions this week, one yesterday and one today. Yeah. One on the ISTE system and one on the Epic Games system, which are virtually the same.
Okay.
But it seemed super well attended. Both we had lots of people in both sessions, over 50 or 60 people in both sessions each. So feels good, but not even moderately close to the same as an in-person conference. Like, it's just not even.
Yeah, I imagine, especially for ISTE, I was thinking about this, it could provide some advantages. Probably cost. I think the cost was reduced. As far as attending, it probably, for people to be able to attend, we knew because the amount of distance between sessions actually will determine whether or not you can actually make sessions. And we talked about this on previous podcasts. As far as ISTE, if you've never been there, there's some huge lines for specific sessions.
Yeah,
and you may not be able to get in because physically get into them.
That was a huge problem in 2019.
Yes, they had security guards there, and they just wouldn't let you in. There's this capacity to the rooms, etc. And so this could provide that kind of thing where you are able to go ahead and attend virtually, which then makes me think then, Mike, is ISTE really going to take the next step? And so are FETC and so on, these big conferences. And are they going to provide a means to be able to do it either way? So if you can attend physically, obviously you would go there. But if you can't, you can still dial in and then be able to go ahead and do a virtual session and still be able to go ahead and do that. So, there's some very niche things that are talked about at ISTE, and sometimes I've had some friends that have presented, and because they were overlapped with another very popular session, they may not even get that many people to attend their session. Maybe 10 people or something at ISTE, which is super disappointing. But if you had an opportunity to do either of the two, then maybe that session would get populated with another 50 people that would attend virtually, plus your 10 that were there. And it would feel at least that much better to the presenter and to the people that wanted to attend. Especially, like I said, there's some very generic things that we've always talked about, and some things that fit everybody, some sessions. But there are some very specific niche things that for specific content areas or grade levels or your passion, you want to go ahead and go attend. And that would be kind of cool if you were able to do that. I don't know if they'll ever open it up to that, or if that hurts their numbers overall.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a big logistical lift because they'd have to equip rooms with think about doing hybrid teaching in a school, right?
Imagine the Wi-Fi.
You would have to be set up not only to speak to the room that you're speaking to, but also be a bit like they'd have to have basically camera crews in some of these rooms potentially because people might walk around. I mean, you'd have to. I don't know how you do it. Now that being said,
they could do it.
I mean, of course they could do it. They have so much money, it's not even funny. It's insane, right? And they're very business savvy. Like ISTE is super business savvy. Like, and I know this
bottom line
from a lot of different angles and interactions with them over especially the last 3 years that we've been interacting with them. We know them to be very business savvy. So it's hard to say whether hybrid ISTE is good for business or bad for business. There's definitely pros and cons to both.
Yes.
But nothing beats being with people
in person.
And
man.
that's what I tweeted. It's funny. I tweeted about how I've been to hundreds of conferences at this point, and sessions, and I could name for you 5 that I remember fairly well. But that being said, one of them is yours. I remember Schoology Next 2017. No, not 2017. The next one in San Diego.
Yes,
when I showed up late, not late, but like I technically early, but late for you did a pre-conference session.
Oh yeah.
At Schoology Next,
I was sick.
and I rolled in fashionably late. The room is full, and I walk in like a big, whatever, and I just sit at the back, and it was fun. But I remember that one because I showed up late to it.
Yes, Scott Nunes was there. Coach was there. I remember that. Yes, that was cool. Yeah, and I remember you showing up. I do.
I remember that session. I also remember the session that I did at FETC with Steve Isaacs, where he asked me to do it at the last minute. Like when I say last minute, I mean like an hour before. And remember, we were writing the Google slide deck at the table that we were doing the podcast on. Yes. And then we're like, okay, let's go. And then we went up and did a session at FETC.
Yep.
Because we're professionals. So
you had it all in your heads. That's the slides are irrelevant. Come on.
It's true. But I did in that tweet. I said I remember almost every meal, almost every like great like person to person moment at a bar, at a restaurant, or whatever. I remember tons of those. Right, like super well, like and ones I didn't even mention, like when you and I played with Jesse in the lobby of the hotel in Minneapolis for like 2 hours, right?
Yes.
I remember
super
in that
fun.
same I remember sitting in that same hotel with Monica and Carl in the bar area talking shop for like probably like 4 hours till like 1 in the morning. I remember all of these things. Going to a little bar with Brian Aspinall because he was so adamant that we went to this bar. He was like aggressive about wanting to go to this one place. So I'm like, okay, Brian, let's go. And it was like this little tiny bar with like really loud music, but it was like an Irish pub that it was in like some TV show or something.
Yes.
And like tons of stuff. Playing games with Mike Matera in when we went back to the hotel in New Jersey. I mentioned that one in one of the tweets. I remember all of those moments.
Yes.
And
nothing beats those moments. And those you can't really replicate them. You just can't online, digitally. Yeah, you can do some things digitally, but you can't do what we're describing there. Yeah. Yes.
Can't beat that stuff. And I have to note that even though I didn't mention you a ton in those tweets, I should mention to the audience that Glen has been with me for probably at least 80% of those moments.
Yeah,
have been also with Glen.
I was at the.
So like in the sense
Needless
that,
to say, I was actually yes, exactly.
So
I was there too,
my point is that we've shared a lot of really good memories together. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's been we've been doing this for this is 2.5 years now. This is episode 199.
199, yes.
And we're about to make a big announcement soon.
Okay.
Not yet, though. Not yet, though. So I actually, we still have not decided what necessarily to do for episode 200. Can't beat being with people in person.
No, and I can't wait till we do that again. Yes, till we have the opportunity.
Get that back going up again. Do most teachers have their master's degree, or is that a goal in the future? I think this came up because
You're getting a master's degree.
I am getting a master's degree.
That's why it came up.
Yeah, so I got accepted to the Masters of Educational Technology program at the University of British Columbia, which is super hard to get into. I actually got declined last year when I applied. because they get like 1,000 applicants and they accept like 20. Our good friend Paul Darvasi is a graduate of the UBC MET program, and he was kind enough to also be one of my references.
Oh,
so
yes.
I appreciate Paul helping out. And so yeah, I've started my master's degree, and it came up because most Canadian educators don't have a master's degree and don't go and get one.
Yeah, so we were speaking about that, and I was wondering if that is as common as I would assume. It's very common as far as the United States, but then I was thinking, I was like, well, for example, I know, my wife, who is a veteran teacher, doesn't have her master's degree, has grad credits, but is not going to pursue that necessarily in any time in the near future. We should do a poll of some sort to be able to go to determine that, or is that a goal in their future? Like you're like, not right now, but I will eventually go ahead and do that. And I know some salary schedules in the United States, they limit the amount of money you can make if you don't get that master's degree. So there's basically a hard line as far as you can make up to this amount, and it doesn't matter how many years of experience until you go on to the next lane, and then be able to go ahead and open up, obviously those new steps on the schedule.
So why did you get yours?
I actually started a couple of other master's degrees. I don't think I've ever told you this. Probably when I was about 24, 25, we had moved back to Colorado, and I was teaching there, and I started a degree, and I finished about half of it. I think I finished 1 year into it at least, of an English as a second language or teaching second languages degree. And then I was like, I'm not really interested in continuing to pursue this, so I let that go. I didn't actually finish that off, and then I was thinking I was going to be an admin for a while, so I started kind of going down that track. And I was like, I don't want to be an admin. Of which none of those, by the way, might counted towards anything, towards the degree that I finally ended up getting, which was in basically ed tech. I think it's called a secondary educational technology something. And at that point, I was very heavily interested, as I currently am still, in just ed tech things, and the research behind it and whatever it might be. So no, it was perfect. And then even my culminating project was about, at that time, the flipped classroom, which was kind of the new big thing. So much of my research was centered around, passive versus active classrooms, what the benefits of a flipped classroom are, and so on and so forth. So they were all very relevant because I was doing the stuff at the time, in my classroom. So I think that's the best thing, is if you can go ahead and be like, okay, I can apply these things to whatever I'm currently doing. Then it makes it seem like you're just reading some extra articles like we do for the podcast, and listening to some things and learning some new things because you want it to benefit yourself. So yeah, so that's the reason why I pursued all of that and finally ended up getting the master's degree. Yes.
I've wanted to get my master's of educational technology, and only my master's of educational technology. In fact, the only school I've ever considered is the UBC MET. So and that's why I didn't apply anywhere else last year. I reapplied this year.
You wanted this one, yes.
I wanted this one. In Canada, we've talked through this a million times. Teachers get paid very well, and they get paid very well whether they have a master's or not. So it doesn't really, and if all you, I want to say this in a better way, if what you want to be is a classroom teacher, sure, and do teaching, be a classroom teacher your entire career, there's no need for you to, there's nothing a master's would do for you other than cost you money, generally speaking. Nothing you couldn't potentially learn on your own or through going to a conference or whatever, or just connections and reading and whatever. You have to have a master's degree to be a principal.
Sure, that makes sense.
So if you're a principal or a superintendent, usually you would have at least a master's degree, and that's you have to have a master's degree. And it's funny, a lot of our teachers training program professors, our BEd teachers, are former principals. So they do not. A lot of them do not have PhDs. Interestingly enough, some of them do, but not a lot of them do. And so, yeah, I have a large interest in just academic scholarship and achievement, and wanting to do that kind of almost for myself. So that's where I'm interested in it. I don't think anything in my work necessarily, both at Participate or whatever I'm going to do in the future would be necessarily significantly impacted by me getting my Master's of Educational Technology.
Sure.
But I am an educator. I'm a teacher. And I'm passionate about that. And no matter what I'm doing, I'm always going to be passionate about that. Sure. And so this is what I'm going to do. I'm excited. So that's that. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to someone. And we're not telling you who still. So, but it is related specifically to our big announcement. So when we come back, we'll have someone and you'll find out who it is in a couple seconds. So see you soon.
We are building this virtual community of educators who share an interest in game design and teaching new skills. We will use this space to connect, collaborate, and innovate with the Sandbox.
That's Sebastian Bourget. He's the co-founder and chief operating officer at the Sandbox.
This community is here to provide guidance, support, feedback, and suggestions on how to best use the Sandbox within the context of teaching and learning how to make video games. It allows also to connect experts and educators, bringing together existing creators and members of the Sandbox game platform community with professional educators.
The Sandbox community has grown into a vibrant space of 100+ educators. How can you get involved? More to come later in the episode.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Our guest is an educator. He's now a school administrator. He's a podcast host and a very good friend. He's also now the newest member of the OnEducation team and a, wait for it, co-host of OnEducation. Welcome, Brad freaking Schreffler.
Hey guys, how's it going, man? What's it, man? I've been on the show before, but this still feels like I'm a little giddy about this. This is like, I don't know, I'm like on another level right now.
This is big changes, folks. Big changes. We're super excited. This has been in the works for months, I think at this point, and I think I'll talk for a few minutes and just kind of give the background a little bit, and then we'll talk to Brad about kind of his side of it and, what got him to say yes to doing this nonsense.
The short version is I don't know how to say no to things.
Well, that's great. And then we actually do want to talk to Brad about transitioning, because he does have a new role in his day job too, and that's pretty dope. So the pandemic was hard, understatement of the year. I think for me and everybody, and exhausting for me and for Glen and for everybody. It's been a crazy year and a half. And the podcast itself, I think the content, the actual content of the podcast, I think has never been better. I think our interviews are better than they've ever been, or as good as they've ever been. I think we're talking about the important things, just like we've always promised we would. But despite that, certainly our numbers have gone down. And to be fair, like I was explaining this to someone the other day, and I was explaining our numbers, and they told me I was stupid because our numbers are still better than, most podcasts, in the world, and certainly most education podcasts on average. But not what we're used to, because, we saw some unbelievable success in 2019. And coming into 2020, I thought it was going to... And actually, it's funny that Glenn and I, at FETC 2020, I remember, we purposely walked from the hotel to the conference center one morning, because we wanted to just have some time to talk without people around. And as soon as you get there, it gets busy, right? It gets stupid. So we talked about the podcast and, what to do. And I think, thought that 2020 was going to be a huge year for us. We set a lot of goals, had a lot of ideas, and, then none of it happened. And that was tough. It was tough for a lot of reasons. So coming into 2021, I wanted to make some changes to some things and breathe some new life into the podcast. Not that, again, the content itself has been really good, but I think, my job is pretty demanding. Glenn's job is pretty demanding. We both have kids, and it's tough. It's just tough doing all of the stuff that a popular podcast requires. And so the idea of bringing on another voice, bringing on someone who would be hopefully, dedicated to the work and believe in kind of the work that we do here specifically, and with the idea that this podcast is a little bit different than I think most other educational podcasts, and like we do talk about the tough stuff and do ask hard questions of our guests. And Brad is one of the best interviewers that I know. And so, when he and I had a conversation a few months ago about, what he does and his goals and his life, and I consider Brad a good friend. And so we were just kind of shooting the shit and talking about things. And some things came up. He's going to talk about them in a few minutes probably. And then, so this is where we are. And I'm really excited. We don't know exactly how it's all going to go yet, but we're making the announcement anyways, because that's what we do. And Brad, I'm pumped to welcome you and have you on. And maybe you can share a little bit about, your journey the last probably 6 months or so that this has kind of ended up getting us to where we are today.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks. I don't know about the one. I think I'm an okay interviewer. I don't know. I think I'm always working on it, but I'll take it. My current boss doesn't think I'm great at it yet. He doesn't let me do it by myself, but that's a different kind of interview. So my journey, kind of like you guys, this last year obviously was difficult, again, understatement, but on top of, and I've been very public about all this, but my own mental health journey and going through that, I think I was actually listening to Mandy Freilich on your guys' show when I started doing meditation and started taking my own mental health seriously, and ended up being diagnosed with anxiety and depression and becoming more aware of that, and sort of going through that mental health journey of taking care of myself, and being very intentionally public about it because of the stigma people put on it, generally speaking. So being intentionally public and putting it out there, but also realizing that I had limits that I didn't ever know I had before. When you spend all your time and effort just shoving down all the things you feel, you just kind of keep going and you don't really notice how stressed out and overworked and overwhelmed you are. So all of a sudden that I was taking care of myself, I started to realize things I've done for years and years and years, I maybe don't have the capacity to do effectively and to my full ability. And if I scaled back on some stuff, which is funny because people have definitely told me before, you might need to scale back. And I've always said, no, that's a ridiculous thing to do. And then, so then all of a sudden when I took care of myself, hey, they might've been right. So about 3-4 months ago, I kind of just stopped releasing episodes of my own podcast, the Planning Period podcast. I took a big hiatus in December and came back for a couple months and then just kind of stopped, and it wasn't like me. It's very much not like me. I didn't even put any kind of announcement out there. I eventually put out on Twitter that, hey, this is just something, I need a break. I need some time off and some time away. And I did. I took that, and it was great for me. I felt good, getting some time and some space away from education, because the day job had become so much more. The actual work of being in education had become so much more. And one of the things Mike and we've talked about is my belief is part of the reason for the dip in numbers that you're seeing on OnEducation is that we're all just kind of burnt out right now.
Agreed.
And I think we'll start to see that pick up when some semblance of normalcy school comes back or balance comes back for all of us. But
when Brad starts talking on the podcast, that's when the number's going to go up.
Yeah, it's a coincidence, but I'll take it. Just give me the credit. It's all good. But yeah, so Mike, you came to me and said, hey, we want to talk to you about some stuff you could do with OnEducation. And it was right around the time where I was starting to feel good and like I could put something back on my plate. Ironically, right around the time I got my promotion. Which you kind of mentioned, but I've moved from an instructional technology coach into an assistant principal role. So I'm now an assistant principal of instruction at a high school in Florida, and doing that role now. So as Mike said, I went to the dark side. I'm one of the bad guys now. And so everything just kind of all lined up well for you guys and for me. And I think it all just has, like you said, it's been a couple months working this out and getting to this point, but I've been so excited. Like I'm pumped. I can't wait, man. If nothing else, I'm just excited to be in the legendary OnEducation DM group. Like that could have been all I got and I would have felt good about it. Like it's a good place to be.
I remember, Brad, when I'm sure we both have been on your show, right?
Yep, you guys have both been on my show.
Yes, and we've discussed basically you behind your back for many years now, just basically talking about your ability to bring out things from guests, which were us in this case, that you didn't think you were going to go in that direction, or you were going to share that, whatever it was, and so it is super exciting to be able to have that be part of the actual team, and also to be able to, like Mike and I have talked about, just being able to share the duties of this, because this is I can't even imagine what you were doing, Brad, which was doing it all, but doing it all by yourself too. So I know that's a huge thing to take on, from booking the guests to everything that's involved as far as doing the podcast itself, to releasing the podcast, and then everything else in between. And it's a cycle. You continue to go in and go, and you're grinding through. But it is important to, I think, for all of us to get some space away and then be able to come back with that energy and be able to kind of give it, what it deserves, for the audience, or for all of our listeners too.
It's going to be great to have, a different opinion. I don't think that we'll disagree. Like Glenn and I, we've talked about this a lot. Glenn and I don't disagree on many things. At least certainly not like adamantly disagree on anything. I don't think ever. At least on the podcast.
COVID shots. Except for requiring COVID shots. That's
even that wasn't like it wasn't like a flame throwing disagreement or anything like that. And to be honest, I'm glad for that. And I don't think that that's going to be the case here either. But certainly just another perspective, and we really enjoy having the perspectives of the team. Like you said, there's other people that help on the podcast. Audrey Thornborough has taken on a bunch more work helping us. which has been, unbelievable, to be honest, and super, super helpful as well. So, I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I think that the way that this will go, just, logistically for friends listening, is there'll be some sort of a rotation where it'll be like Brad and I, and then it'll be Brad and Glenn, and then it'll be Glenn and I, and then it'll be Glenn and Brad, and then we'll just keep, it'll just go around basically like that. And then what's great about that is that, if something comes up, we can swap day. And one of the notorious problems that Glenn and I have is that Monday night is the time and day that we set aside for this.
He says
and
on a
we
Tuesday.
Do not, yeah, no, and that's what's funny is that if we don't do it on Monday nights, it generally goes to hell really quick in terms of finding another time. Like, we were lucky that, this is the middle of the summer for Brad's working, because he's, on the dark side now. But Glenn is off, and I am on holidays this week, so Tuesday was good for us today. But if this was the middle of October, finding another night has been notoriously hard. And we've gotten to the point some nights where we've said, screw it, we can't do it. We're gonna have to wash it because we can't find another time. And so ideally, now the Monday night will be canon, and if one of us can't make it, the other one can hopefully swap in, and we just continue on. And I'm optimistic about that because that's been a thing, to be honest. And so I'm excited. Let's talk about Brad switching jobs. How's that been? How's it been so far?
That's a lot. So
don't say anything bad, because I don't want you to get. You've only been doing it for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I don't want to get fired yet. I don't
fired
quite
already.
I don't have the position to quite speak as freely. No,
it's been amazing.
It's been perfect. Nothing's gone wrong. No, it's been interesting. It's something that I've been working for a couple years, and I've talked about on my own show, and about getting my master's degree and going through that process, and never wanting to do this. I was that teacher, like so many stereotypical, ridiculously seems like a lie stories of oh well, I never want to be an administrator, and then I just kind of was. And I wouldn't quite go that far, but I definitely never wanted to be an administrator. In fact, for the first 3 seasons of my podcast, I said that repeatedly. And so I have lots and lots of recorded versions of me being wrong, which is great. Which is really wonderful. The great thing about putting your voice out there on the internet for all time. But I did finally decide to do it, and because I felt like I had the capacity to do it and could do a good job as an administrator, and I saw so many people who weren't. And so, but then kind of overnight, I went from an instructional technology coach, kind of the last day of post-planning, I was still technically an instructional technology coach. I was actually going to buy a pickup truck, my brand new truck, and got a call from my now principal saying hey, I want you to come in on Tuesday and meet with me. And so because that Monday was Memorial Day, and then Tuesday we came out, and I went out and I met with him at 1, and by 1:15 he was like, so what do you think about being the API, or the assistant principal of instruction, and starting immediately? I said, what do you mean immediately? And he's like, let's go walk around. And he proceeded to walk me around the school and introduce me to everybody as the new API. It was I was there for 20 minutes. I was okay, this is now a thing. Which, again, it wasn't technically official until just a week ago or so, but it's, there, it has to go through the board and all those kinds of channels and stuff. But, so it just kind of happened. And, most listeners will probably know, structures are different everywhere, but as the API, I'm over mainly one of the biggest things is student services and the master schedule. And starting as an API at a 2,400 student high school on June 1st, is
That's tough, man.
probably the worst possible scenario. You have like a half-done master schedule, which is no fault of the person before me. She got put somewhere else, but you know, it's a half-done master schedule that needed to be done 2 weeks ago, and I haven't actually ever done this I mean, I've worked on it with other people, but I've never done one myself. So just here you go. Good luck. Also, you're over all these people in this guidance department. Tell them what to do too. Okay. So, like I do so very often, I'm just making it up as I go along and hoping I don't screw it up too bad.
Yeah. No, I mean, that in itself, I know what you're talking about. And I work in that similar size high school. And that job is usually, when it's done in March and April, we're breathing a sigh of relief. Usually it's beginning of May, and we're like, okay, it's done. We're getting it in. Kids have schedules. We're going to be okay. In your situation, that's like what nightmares are made out of.
Yeah.
But you're doing it. That's freaking awesome. I mean, at least you're seeing it from the ground up, and then you can actually then use all of that knowledge then obviously for next year as you go in the proper timing, you know, you get to hit it on the proper timing.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the weird bonus of, like, being thrown into the middle of it, is I'm very clearly seeing what the person before me did, and I think everybody has their own style, but I'm able to say, okay, well, I see what they did, and it ended up in this, which would have ended differently for them, I'm sure, if they had made different choices but that they would have made while they were here that I didn't make, whatever. But, like, I know next year I want to do this instead, or I want to do this. So it's like I'm getting to very clearly see the choices that led to where I am and the things I want to change, how to make different choices that get me there, if that makes any sense.
Did you know, Brad, I mean, you always just said kind of got sprung on you, you know, as far as your thing, but let's say in the back of your mind or whatever it might be, had you already changed some as far as your tune about being an administrator? Do you know what I mean? So in other words, you probably hadn't said it out loud or anything, but you were like, I maybe could do this or something.
Yeah, you know, a lot of it was the school I was at previously, and seeing, I went to a middle school with the highest functioning leadership team I've ever worked with. I mean, we all worked together, but we managed to balance life on top of that, which is something I hadn't really seen from good administrators before. I'd seen plenty of bad APs manage to have plenty of time with their families, but I hadn't seen any like good ones manage to balance it out. And seeing that happen at a middle school, I felt like, you know, I could actually balance those things, and I know I'm confident I'd be good at it, fine. And then my principal said to me one day, I said something about someone I knew at a different school complaining about their AP or something, and he just goes, you know, you see, Brad, this is the problem. And I was like, what? He goes, these are the candidates. Like, this is the pool we have. Like, it's not a deep pool of candidates. It's not all quality all over the place. And so when I see someone like you who has the capacity and can do the job well, and they're just choosing not to, that's a dereliction of duty.
Oh, ouch. Yeah. Huh.
Within 4 hours, I had signed up for a master's program. Like, it was the right needle to push, and I was like, dang it. That's it. I'm in. Like, let's go.
I'm going to get my wife to listen to what you just said. I don't want to say it because I don't want to get punched. But
that could be my introduction to the show, is immediately pissing off Mike's wife. Cool. Happy birthday, Cheryl.
yeah, exactly. God. Great. What do you think you're going, like, if you could think of things that assistant principals do and have historically done, and for lack of better words, historically done wrong or not the way that you think it should be done, what do you think you're going to do differently? I'm curious. What is the Brad Schreffler oeuvre?
I don't know. I've seen so many things done poorly. I feel like I'm off the top of my head, like, as you're asking that question, what's coming to mind is just leading with humanity. Like, I think like I've talked about, my own journey has been so interesting in the last year, especially. But even before that, I've as a person, I've definitely grown a lot in the last 4 years, just in how I treat other people and how I look at the things I do, how I treat students, and just have become more kind, I guess is probably the best way to put it. You know, I was that sarcastic jerk teacher for a long time that a lot of kids couldn't stand, but there was like that handful of kids that liked me, and that made like justification to continue to be a sarcastic jerk to 7th graders, like even though they didn't really get it now that I look back in retrospect. And so it's like realizing, okay, those things didn't always work. I needed to be more cognizant of where I was at and like reflective of what was happening, and just leading that way. You know, we talk about it all the time on this show. You guys do, you know, and on my show too. We talk to these like great educators, and they're like, oh, I'm doing this thing and I'm doing this thing, and we talk to these awesome people and lift these voices up, and it's great, it's awesome. But I've also been that teacher that has listened to those things and said, well, my admin would never let me do that. Like, I would never be allowed to try that, or that wouldn't be what they would think is the right move. And like, I don't know, I want to be the guy that says, do it. Like, go do that thing. Like, try it. Is it good for kids? Then do it. Like, that's always my question with people, and it's already been with my guidance counselors. You know, they're like, oh, I think I want to do this, this, and this. And I go, well, is that what's best for the kid? Yeah? Okay. Then you have my approval. Let's go. I'll back you. Like, and they've had a couple times of like, was the principal mad at you? I was like, I don't think so, but did we do what was best for kids? Yeah. No, well, then if he's mad, he'll be mad at me, not at you. It's fine. Like, it's fine. I've been in AP for like a week and a half. What can he do?
You're still learning. You're doing this stuff. That's awesome. I love that mantra. Brad, I was thinking about you had a set of questions, I believe. I'm just remembering back to your podcast that you used to ask all of your guests. Is that correct?
Yep.
And I believe one of the questions was something to the effect of like, what's the biggest challenge in education today? What's the biggest problem?
Biggest problem facing education today, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I did. And I was thinking about your voice and your interview style and even the questions that you asked. And kind of like, have you thought about what you might bring into this podcast now? Do you know what I mean? Because I would want that awesome Brad interview style / that specific amazing part of your podcast to somehow become, I don't want to say we're going to copy that, but something of that.
Well, it's not copying it if I'm here, right?
No,
we can just
exactly.
ask the same question, right?
Exactly.
That's all we got to do is just throw that in the list. Like, I'm here, I'm okay.
That is going to say, copying your questions is going to save us so much time.
I was hoping that you would.
That's the only reason I was able to run a podcast by myself, is because I didn't ever have to think about questions. I always asked the same questions.
Oh my God.
I was hoping that you would add some kind of highbrow, amazing.
Oh, you asked the wrong person. That is not highbrow. Is the opposite of what I'm good at. No. So actually, I will say the first question I asked Mike when we talked about it is, I said, okay, do you guys write all your questions in advance? Because that's not how I work, like, at all. Because, you know, if I am good at interviewing, it's because I don't know where the conversation's going to go until I get the answer to a question. Like, because... and I've had this experience a lot on my show, and people that have listened to it know that I will often my guests will say something, and I'll say, I'm not sure which direction I want to take this right away, you know, and like, I will give it a second to think about it and really like ask the follow-up question of whatever it is that they just said that makes me want to ask something else, you know. And so I said right away, like the whole list of questions, even though they're just for you guys as a framework, I can ask questions, but that's not I don't think that's my voice, if you put it that way, you know. My voice on a show is just having a conversation and kind of seeing where it goes, you know, just, hey, that was a cool answer, but I like this little part, I feel like another teacher might question, but when you said that, did you mean this? Or, you know, and one that I used a lot, like I've said something like this to teachers and I get this pushback all the time. How do you respond to that? You know, some of those things where, I don't want to say not letting a guest off the hook, because it's not like we're grilling them, right? Like it's a conversation, but just seeing where it goes.
It's going to be exciting. We don't know exactly when, you know, or you know, how things are. We don't know anything at this precise moment. But by the time we need to know things, we're gonna make it up as we go along. But hopefully, you know, listeners will trust us that we'll figure it all out, and have some fun and keep having meaningful conversations with people, not just educators, because I mean, that's not necessarily what we're doing here. Though almost everything is education adjacent, and it's going to be great.
It's education or video games, one or the other. That's
you're going to definitely need to, play some more games.
Yeah,
sure.
I was thinking about that yesterday, actually. I was like, oh, you know what? Now that I'm doing this, I can call gaming like work. I can tell my wife, like, sorry, I got to get ready for the podcast. I got to go upstairs and
I got to test this out.
Ready.
Got to go play
have a comment about it, at least. Yes.
Gotta go play some games. Gotta do some work. Love it. So welcome, Brad, to the team. We'll be getting the word out on the Twitters and all of that stuff over the next week or so, and you're gonna hear Brad on the podcast real soon, and then going forward, and hopefully when we get back out onto conferences, certainly FETC, because that's right in Brad's backyard. We'll have 3 of us there doing whatever the hell it is we're gonna do.
We should have a house party. We'll have an OnEducation house party at my house. That sounds like a good plan.
That sounds like we should just book that. Let's book that right now.
Yeah, man. Welcome to the team. Really excited.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll get going. Let's get to work.
Let's do it.
The Sandbox is creating a learning ecosystem where educators can learn in weekly streams, bring ideas into their classrooms, collaborate with other educators, and become Sandbox ambassadors.
Our goal through the stream is to show the world how low the barrier can be to teaching and learning game making through our no-code and accessible platform. Anyone can do it. Passion and education. You can feel it in the streams as we explore and share ideas around game design implementation in your teaching practice.
Join the community to learn more at go.participate.com/sandbox.
Thanks for listening to OnEducation. My name is Glen Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. OnEducation is part of the On Podcast Media Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Monica Burns, Mike Matera, Tisha Richmond, and many more by visiting onpodcastmedia.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website, oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found on Twitter at IrvSpanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/oneducationpod. We're also on Instagram at oneducationpod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Participate, for supporting us. Check out participate.com to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening, stay awesome, and see you soon.